Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Param Om. Okay, welcome back to our Tripura. We have seen last class the verse 88, and we begin today 89. Who denies consciousness has no ground to stand on, and so no discussion is possible. Again, knowledge there goes for the first knowledge. This knowledge goes for consciousness. So if you deny your self-evident knowingness or conscious existence, presence, I mean, words make it so complicated to try to explain this simple thing, you know. So if you deny your conscious existence, which is self-evident, always shine, and then you say, okay, so, and then we have no ground on which to discuss self-knowledge. The subject of knowledge settled. Once we settle the subject around knowledge / consciousness, the question arises regarding the existence of objects in the absence of their knowledge. Okay, so this is it reminds me of that philosophical debate. I mean, in the middle of nowhere in the jungle, a tree falls on the floor. There is no creature, no human being there to know the fall of the tree. Did the tree fell, or did the tree not fell? You understand? So in the absence of knowledge. So as the example, somewhere in the woods, you know, the tree falls right and left. There is nobody there. And from the standpoint of Jivatma, in retrospective, we know that the tree has fallen. Okay, in the presence of the other human beings that have a very rudimentary conscious knowledge of things, you know, they intuitively they escape the fall of the tree. So the tree fell because it killed some creatures to the creature. But from the standpoint of Ishvara, which is all-knowing, nothing escapes Ishvara. And furthermore, from the standpoint of knowledge, meaning to say consciousness, nothing escapes consciousness, because everything is apparently happening within consciousness, right? So nothing escapes consciousness. But, you know, the subject of knowledge being settled, there is a philosophical question regarding the existence of certain objects in the absence of the knower, okay? So in the absence of the knower, we can say, well, there are objects that exist in the absence of a knower, of course. I mean, when we go to deep sleep, so the knower disappears, and the objects, I mean, at least my bed remains overnight, because when I get up in the morning, I'm still on my bed. So the objects are there in the absence of the knower, okay? But it's always there within the scope of consciousness. There is never absence of consciousness. There is never absence of knowledge. Here, knowledge goes. It's a discussion in terms of if the knower is not there. Okay, so the objects, you know, which depends on the knower, which fundamentally is consciousness. Okay, it depends on where you put this knower. If you put the knower in consciousness, and then we know that there is no question of absence of knowledge, of consciousness. I mean, from the standpoint of consciousness, nothing escapes consciousness. But let's go here to see where the author goes with the discussion. Objects and their knowledge, saying object and the knowledge of the object are only reflection in the eternal self-luminous consciousness, which is the same as the knower, and which is the only reality. So, you understand? So the objects of knowledge, yeah? And then the knowledge which happens between the object of knowledge and the knower. The knower is the Jivatma. Okay, so we have objects of knowledge, and then we have knowledge is happening because there is a knower. Okay, so this trinity, known, knowledge, knower, this trinity exists within Mitya, which exists as a reflection, okay, in the eternal self-luminous supreme consciousness. And then there is only consciousness. Within consciousness, there is a reflection. The reflection is the knower, knowledge, and dualistic knowledge, and object of knowledge. This trinity happens as a reflection in consciousness. So there is no question of anything escaping consciousness, sometimes referred as knowledge, okay? So on the standpoint of consciousness, nothing escapes consciousness because everything is happening within consciousness. From the standpoint of the knower, okay? So the knower, the Jiva-Atma, there are things that do not happen to this Jiva-Atma, and there are certain things that happen to no Jiva-Atma at all, such as the tree falling in the middle of nowhere in the woods. You understand? Although in retrospective, we can infer the number of trees that have fallen overnight, okay? With satellites, maybe nowadays, things like that may be possible, yeah? But anyhow, the point to be made here, objects and their knowledge are only reflections that occur in the mirror of consciousness, the self-luminous mirror-like supreme consciousness, which is the same as the knower, which is the only reality. Now again, we separate the knower from consciousness, and then we resolve again within consciousness, okay? And then we say the knower, the one knowing phenomenal object is consciousness. This knower is alone the only reality, because consciousness is the only reality. It's alone the only reality, okay? And then what's the philosophical discussion here? There is no object that escapes consciousness or knowledge, okay? There is no such a thing as in the absence of consciousness, no. It's always there, but the knower may be missing, but consciousness is free and independent from the knower. The trinity, knower, knowledge, and known happens within consciousness. Consciousness does not need these three pillars of the universe, you understand? So nothing happens outside the scope of consciousness. So then the doubt here is a doubt due to the superimposition of the knower in consciousness, or consciousness over the knower. The doubt that the reflection should be of all objects simultaneous without reference to time and space. And then in the mind of some people, they say, okay, everything is happening in consciousness, and the knower is consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality, is all-knowing. Yeah? And then why I, the knower, when I know my environment, I don't know the entire universe, okay? Because simultaneously there are infinite numbers of events happening at the same time, right? They all happen at the same time. So the doubt that the reflection should be of the entire universe, okay? Since there is only one consciousness, yes, but there are infinite numbers of small reflectors, the subtle body of the Jiva. The subtle body of the Jiva is going to capture a small environment, his own environment of events. And nowadays we can capture now with the use of communication and things like that. So the doubt that the reflection should be of all objects simultaneously without reference to space and time. So I should know everything because I am the knower, and the knower fundamentally is consciousness. Nothing escapes consciousness. I am consciousness, therefore I should know everything. Now, that applies to Ishvara. Ishvara is all-knowing, although Ishvara is not an experiencing entity. So the doubt, this doubt that I should know everything simultaneously, which is contrary to our experience, our goes to the Jiva-Atma's experience, need not to arise. So we should never engage with this doubt, okay? because time and space are themselves objects, conceptual objects. Time and space is a concept. It happens within the Jivatma's mind. And they are all mithya, they are all reflections, okay? So fundamentally, there is only the concept of the entire universe. The concept of the entire universe that happens in my mind, and as well it happens in Lin's mind and Mark's mind and Silva's. It's one concept. This concept is itself mithya, okay? They are just concepts, knowable concepts, and they are mithya, they are just objects. So there is the inner subtle world of concept and the outer world of physical object that's going to formate this concept. And this is the whole game between subtle and physical material object. And all of that is within mithya. And to think that I should know everything about all universe is, there's no need to arise that, because time and space is just a concept. It's as good as non-existent. No? The specific nature of the reflections is the obverse of the objects found in space. I forgot the meaning of obverse because I read it last week.
I think it may mean, I'm not sure of the specific, but to the contrary.
Yeah, to the contrary. The specific nature of the reflections. There was another translation that was making better sense. The specific nature of the reflections is the obverse, is the...
Mark, do you have a better?
The specific nature of the reflection is the nama-rupas of the objects found in space. Let me read it here in Portuguese. Forgot to double check the passage.
I just saw a definition that says counterpart.
Counterpart, yes. It's pretty much that, yeah. Yeah, counterpart, yeah. That was the note I made in Portuguese language. Is the other side of the counterpart, the other side. The other side is even better. That was the note I made. The specific nature of the reflections is the other side of the objects found in space. So the mirror itself is not real, and then because it's made out of the Prakriti of Maya, but it's something as close to Brahman that we say Brahman and Maya are basically almost the same thing. The specific nature of the reflections is the other side, the objects found in space. So I don't know exactly what to make of this phrase here. A specific name, it would be the attributes and aspects of nature of the reflection, is the other sides of the objects found in space. So I couldn't go to look for the unfoldment done by Swami Paramarthananda, because Swami Paramarthananda did not teach this text. So if you guys have a good insight, the specific nature of the reflections is the other side of it from the space. Yeah, I mean, the object is an object, and then the attributes we attribute to the object is the other side of the object, which is just something that happens in space, in time, something like that. Maybe there's not deeper meaning there, you know? '92. Therefore, Prince, realize with a still mind your own true nature, which is the one pure, undivided consciousness, indwelling the restless mind, which is composed of the whole universe in all its diversity. Okay. Okay, again, she motivates him, realize with a still mind your own true nature, which is of pure undivided consciousness. The background underlying the mind, the states of mind, the restless mind, which is composed of the whole universe in all its diversities. Okay, so there is a good pointer here. It says that dive to realize your undivided consciousness, and this consciousness underlies the restless mind. And then says this restless mind is composed of the entire universe in all its diversity. There is a good pointer here that the universe and the mind is the same thing, because the mind is composed by the whole universe. We have the universe is going to produce mental vrittis. The mental vritti is going to compose the mind, the individual mind, the collective mind, and then we have this phenomenon of collective mind, which is composed of everything that exists in the universe as it is put here, which is composed of the whole universe in all its diversities of namarupas, phenomena, configurations. The mind is nothing but the collection, the recollection or collection of every object we have contact on an individual level and in the collective level. So realize this undivided consciousness. It is the substratum of the restless mind. And then one would think, okay, so and then I'm going to still my mind, and then consciousness is going to be realized. But then if the restless mind comes back, and then consciousness is going to be lost again. So this is the conclusion that many people take, okay, which ends up compelling people to try to live in Samadhi all the time, in Vikalpa Samadhi. She goes on to say, if one is fixed in that fundamental consciousness, which is the base of the universe, one becomes the all-doer. I shall tell you how to inherit thus. I assure you, you will be that all-doer. So what it means by the all-doer here is that the Jiva Atmas is not really a doer, but there is the causeless cause of the universe that somehow brings about this universe without doing anything. So this is another language which is a little bit vague here, why you said becomes the all-doer. So it's the omniscient principle of the universe who knows everything and activates everything. Maheshwara makes things to be done, makes things move. Action, cause and effect, and the stimulus and response, all of that, all this doer comes from the self, the universal self. Keep your mind fixed in this fundamental consciousness, which is the base of the universe, the self, and then you become the all-doer. I shall tell you how to inherit thus. You will be that all-doer. Realize with a still mind the state between sleep and wakefulness, the interval between recognition of one object after another, or the gap between two perceptions. So we have seen some of that in the last class. This whole game of trying to find the silence between two words, or the silence between two experiences. And then in that silence, you need to extract the knowledge that that absence of mental activity is not nothingness, but it reveals the presence of the substratum, which is pure limitless consciousness. So still you need to infer that by knowledge. Otherwise, you just see the gaps as silence, as peace. Between two thoughts, between two states, between two perceptions, and so on. And then there is a note from the commentator, maybe, or the author, or whosoever did this translation sometime there in the past. The commentator compares the rays of light proceeding from the sun before they impinge on materials. They are themselves invisible, but capable of illumining objects. Jesus explained the third statement above. He also says that consciousness is like water flowing through a channel and later assuming the shape of the beds watered. Okay, when I read this note, I was wondering, so where is the analogy about rays of light here? Because I couldn't connect this commentary with any metaphor or analogy referring to. The commentator compares the rays of light proceeding from the sun.
It's realizing with a still mind, the still mind. So the light is shining all the time, but we only notice it when it reflects upon something. So consciousness is forever shining, but until a thought or a new state arises, we miss it. I think that's the analogy.
Realize with the still mind your true nature, which is the pure and divided consciousness, underlying the wrestling mind, which is composed of the entire universe and in all its diversity. If one is fixed in that fundamental consciousness, one becomes the all-doer. Okay. Realize with the still mind the state between state and wakefulness, and yes, absolutely. Bingo. So the reference to rays of light here, which it can be realized in the absence of the object it reflects upon. The rays of light, if there is not, I mean, we never saw rays of light without anything it reflects upon, because it's always reflect. Yeah, no, the room is empty, but it's empty because the light is reflect on the walls. But suppose that there is light and there is no object to be reflected, but for the light to reflect upon. So, and then you would have to grasp, to understand that there is just light, not to reflect on anything, but just showing up as luminosity. So as I used to put in the past, pure luminosity without anything to be reflect upon. So they are themselves invisible. That's the problem. Light is invisible without having something to reflect upon, but capable of illumining objects. Jesus explains the third statement above. Realize the mind, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he also says that consciousness is like water flowing through a channel and later assuming the shape of the beds watered. He also said the consciousness is like a water flowing through the channel and later assuming the shape of the bed. So I couldn't connect again this analogy with what I said in the last 3 verses.
I think it's more of what Mark was showing us, but it also reminds me of the existence meditation we learned from Panchadasi. I think that was in Panchadasi, the existence meditation. meditation.
Yeah, can you elaborate more?
Just not very well, but just that when we look at the world, what we see is pure existence in and through, like the water in the shape of the beds watered.
Yeah, because existence takes the shape of namarupas. So we reject the namarupas and then we see existence. So we reject the beds, the river beds, and then we see only water, and the water is flowing. There is only water and we see a river. That's also another analogy. And there is only ocean and we see waves. There is only water and we see an ocean. There is only water coming down and we see a river due to the two beds of the river, and the inclination and the shape and the landscape and so on. This is the real self, inherent, in which one is no longer deluded. Unaware of this real self, people have become inheritors of sorrow. Another note, the commentator adds that a sage realizing the world as the reflection of the mind treats it as such and is thus free from misery. This is the real self, inherent, in which one is no longer deluded. If we are not aware of this, we're going to get sorrow, and the sorrow comes from the belief that the world is real, rather than just a reflection in the mirror of consciousness. So the sage, realizing that the world as a reflection that happens in the mind, which is not apart from consciousness, treats this reflection as such. And it's no longer diluted and no longer subject to samsara, misery. Shape, taste, smell, touch, sound, sorrow, pleasures. The act of gaining or the object gained. None of these finds place in that transcendence which is the support of all there is, and which is the being in all, but is bereft of everything, does not contain anything. That is the Supreme Lord, the Creator, the supporter, and the destroyer of the universe, and the eternal being. So we have the five senses, and then we have the organs of action as well, which allows us to chase things, to gain things, to keep things. None of this finds place in consciousness. Consciousness is the real thing. And although it's not made by the totality of all these things, that is the Supreme Lord, the Creator, destroyer, blah, blah, blah. Now, let not your mind be outgoing, turn it inward. Control it just a little and watch for the self. Always remembering that the investigator is himself the essence of a being and the self of the self. This is very nice. So this is extremely important. We have been hammering on this point. The first point to be noticed here, now let not your mind be out there, outgoing, dispersed, over-attracted by phenomenal object. Turn it inward. Control it, but just a little. It's not about controlling it fully. Control it just a little because you need the mind. With the mind, yeah, fix the mind and discover the true nature of the mind. So control it just a little and watch for the self. Once the mind is under control, use the mind to search for the nature of the mind and watch for the self. Always remembering that you, the meditator, the investigator, the inquirer, is the self. Then what we are looking for? We are looking for a final, clear, hard and fast, firm understanding, doubtless understanding. What I'm looking for a doubtless understanding that I, the seeker, am the self. Therefore, I'm not seeking for myself because I'm not stupid. Okay, I am the self, but I'm just doing this nididhyasana because I want to have this knowledge free of any sort of doubt. I want it to be clear and doubtless, but I know that I am the self. I'm not searching for the self. I'm doing this just to remove any possible doubts, any possible, vagueness or so on. Remembering that investigator, the inquirer, is the self of the self. The commentary of this verse says, this verse contains what is not to be done. Namely, the mind should not be permitted to be out there in the world all the time. I think I mentioned to you guys recently that there is a friend who came in contact with me after 2 years of knowing, because it's a family, an Italian family who lives nearby here. And then he knew something about Vedanta and me teaching Vedanta. And then later he started asking questions and he wanted me to do a presentation of Vedanta. But the guy is the most Rajasic person I ever met. But somehow he's 76 now. He got into, and he comes from the background of my first guru, and he's still attached to those notions. And then he was just so hot about that after he read 2-3 times the big picture of Swami Paramarthananda. But the guy is so Rajasic that now almost 2 months have passed and he's all over the place doing things that he did not need to be doing, but it's his nature. That he never spoke anymore about that presentation of Vedanta, and I believe it will never happen. He found some notion, because now he's going to fly to Europe again and so on. So we should not allow the mind to live all the time out there. We need to bring it inwardly. And if you're not able to stop this leakage, this leak, energy is leaking out, it's leaking. If you cannot stop that, there is no way you can turn the mind into contemplating its true nature. You understand? It should not be permitted to be leaking outside there. The mind must be turned inwards. And what is to be engaged? And what is to be engaged? In watchfulness. So you need to watch. I don't know what he means by watch here, what she means. What is to be done? The mind is to be turned inwards, and what is to be engaged in watchfulness?
I think it might be referring back to the verse where it says, watch for the self.
Yeah, watch for the self. Yeah, you need to watch, look, search for the self, as we know. And in this text, sometimes it presents a language that may be a bit confusing, but and then immediately afterwards, it corrects itself and presents the fact that it's all about understanding. Okay, you will see how it goes. Just a short control is enough. watch for your mind. Your mind is outgoing. Stop that, bring it under control, and engage in self-inquiry. But remember, you don't need to control your mind all through to the point that you cannot think anymore. No long control is necessary for this purpose. The question arises, how I'm going to look for the self? The investigator, the investigation, and the object investigates are all one and the same. So the knower, the known object, and the knowledge of this known object, which is not an object to begin with, because here saying the object of investigation is not the object at all, is one's very subjectivity. Okay, there is only the absolute knower, the absolute subject. The mind should be brought to the condition of a newborn baby. So this is an interesting analogy that I have seen it over the past 40 years. No? Yeah, more or less 40 years. This notion of developing a mind so naive and innocent like a newborn babe. So as if that is the greatest goal. The mind should be brought to the condition of a newborn babe. Then it feels as if it were separate from all gross materials, and only the feeling I am persists. So again, these are pointers to the famous Nisargadatta's Mara, which is eternal pointer now, concept, spiritual concept. Hold on to your I amness, yeah? A feeling I am, I exist. So if you say I am, and if it is I am does not bring about I am, the body, on I am and you are I am and the three E's. So just stay as the thought feeling I am, I exist, as Swami Nisargadatta Maharaj used to put. Only the thought feeling I amness, I am, persists. Okay, it's a good pointer. But this is not limitless pure consciousness, like Nisargadatta used to put, but this is a nice reflection of limitless pure consciousness on a very contemplative mind, or reflecting mind, sattvic mind. When the mind is controlled just a little, a state will be evident at the end of the effort in which the self can be realized as pure being, pure existence, underlying all phenomena, but undivided by the phenomena, similar to the babe sense. So there is a I amness, a babe sense, things are happening, but somehow it's not dividing. Yeah? The consciousness of the babe, who seems to be absolutely indifferent to whatsoever appears, he's just in wonder. Now, it's nice to see babes sometimes because they look like, they want to put everything in their mouths. Yeah? You have to watch, because otherwise they end up eating their own caca, as we know.
I was thinking it kind of, I hadn't really thought about that analogy before, but when you're a baby, the phenomena comes in through the senses, but it's like you have no categories for anything. So the mind isn't active in the same way. It barely doubts. It's like you're asanga, you're unattached.
Yeah. Yeah, because you are consciously, you don't have your likes and dislikes operating yet, And then when you have likes and dislikes, and then you start experience mental disturbance, mental discomfort. Be also free from the thought, I see. Remain still like a blind man seeing. What transcends sight and not sight? That consciousness you are. Be quick and be that. So what it says, what it means, be quick, you know? It's not that consciousness is going to present itself to you and then you have to catch hold of it before it escapes. No. But be quick in the sense that don't start analyzing, you know, what it is. Just realize that I am just consciousness, you know? It's like having some nice experience. I remember in the past, before we're done. And then I have the experience, and then the famous, this is it, comes into your mind. Yeah? This is it. And they say, oh my God, what I saw, this is it. And then when the mind starts process the experience, and then everything seems to be spoiled. Yeah? So be free from the thought, I see, this is it. Be totally equanimous, you know, just as I am. This I am is incredible source of bliss, but as Lynn has said, one of our past class, that bliss becomes a little bit boring afterwards. But to remain as I am, I find, and I think I shared that with you guys long before, is the most direct meditation, because you will focus your mind on this pure reflection that produces this bridge, I am, I exist. You understand? You hold your mind in this sense, thought, I am, which is one of the best possible symbols of the self, because it's the original reflection of the self in the subtle body, producing I am before I am, search for define itself, you know, as this or that. So remain still like a blind man seeing. A blind man sees but does not see. A blind man, I guess, that has got so many descriptions, or maybe by touching, he was doing some neural connections to define what he was touching, feeling, and tasting, and hearing, that he has the world within itself as well. So he does not see it physically, but he sees its inner concepts. Yeah. So remain like a blind man seeing what transcends sight and no sight. So it's what I am is beyond what I know and what I do not know. Okay, I'm the light that reveals knowledge and ignorance. So you are that consciousness. Be quick and be that. So let's see if there is any commentaries on this quick job here. Here, the commentary says the self transcends also the feeling I see. Adherence to that sensation divorce one from the self. The moment that we are having a sense organ operating, it can be even the mind saying, ah, how wonderful. You know, the moment that there is the mind or any one of these sense organs, the mind accessing this mental, subtle experience, you're already divorcing yourself from your true nature, because now you are overlapping, you are just superimposed this notion that how wonderful on the self. I see. Let that feeling also go. You don't see, you don't sense, you don't have any experience. I mean, you are not attracted to experience. You are just so dispassionate towards anything, you know, that it's out of your radar. Any sort of experience does not attract you anymore. For that state is absolutely unsustained by any will, sensation, or thought. So again, you're talking about consciousness as a state. You know? That state is absolutely unstained by will, sensation, or thought. Okay. So it means to say that state, which is not a state, but it is consciousness, but it can be experienced as a state once it is clearly realized, and once this passion has developed to the extent that we don't engage any sensation, thought, feeling, or perception. If we don't engage, understand? And then we experience a beautiful state. This is all there is to it. If we engage thoughts, feelings, sensation, if we engage, and then we are subject to likes and dislikes, what I want and what I do not want. But if we don't engage, this means to say we are enjoying a mental state of dispassion, equanimity. I'm just enjoying your very being, enjoying your conscious existence, without interest in whatsoever you're going to contact through desire, sensations, thoughts. If you otherwise, there will be no perfection in spite of innumerable efforts. So she's teaching him somewhat yoga. So go to the I am, be dispassionate, don't raise any desire or any sensation or thought. Forget that you even are. I remember when I used to do this meditation, I was for a long time on I am, and then in the later stage, I was enjoying much more just I. M was putting too much load on the I. There was a period that was like I. There is only I. Anything from you guys?
Yeah, sometimes the language makes it a little difficult to get, and yet the language is so poetic that it also just gives you it's like falling down a waterfall or something. It's just helps you immerse beautifully because it takes the heart with it. It's just, thank you so much for opening this text to me. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it myself as well, once again. Again, the word sight includes the waking and dream states. So sight and no sight, what you see, what you do not see, sleep to the world. When the world is awake, just sleep to it, means to say, don't fall into attraction and repulsion towards the world. The word sight and no sight includes the awake and dream. You are seeing the world. No sight means deep sleep. So you want to be in deep sleep, but in the awakening state. That which is threading through these three states and even surpass the sense I am is what you are. So it's a kind of deep sleep, but it's not deep sleep, because deep sleep, there is no sense of Aham Brahmasmi, of course. There is nothing. But you see the world and you don't fall to the identification with what belongs to the world. You identify yourself as the seer, the ultimate, the true seer of the world. So it's like being beyond the three states, and sometimes the pointer is deep sleep is a source of ananda, because you are no longer subject to ragas and dveshas, likes and dislikes. You understand? That which is threading through these three states and surpass the sense I am is what you are. So you're going to develop a mind in that kind of state, which is vastly or relatively free from likes and dislikes, which is the fundamental problem of the human experience. Yeah? In order to have that, you need to understand what? You need to understand your nature as something which is beyond the three states. It's Turiya. Yeah? Is that which underlies the three states. You need to recognize that. And then recognizing that, you're going to recognize, oh, I'm not the mental state of the waker or the dreamer, and neither of the sleeper. Okay, I am Turiya. And as Turiya, I am permanently Purna, permanently full, whole, and complete. As the deep sleeper, I am full and complete. I feel like satisfied, but only temporarily. So I need to recognize that which is beyond the deep sleep as well. You understand that which is the substratum of the causal body and the experience of no duality. Right? So that which threading through the three states, that which surpasses the I am. I am the dreamer, I'm the waker, and I am the deep sleeper. So you are that consciousness. This consciousness is also referred as the fourth state, Turiya, which is the string on which all the diverse objects of the universe are strung. And the whole is a garland of Sri Ramana. Beautiful. Again, we don't need to say, repeat again, Turiya is not a mental state, okay? But understanding your nature as Turiya brings about a awakening state which has a different nature of, or feel to it, of the samsari or the anyani mental awakening state, okay? Because now you are living through the awakening state as a jiva mukta or as a yani, and then your mind is resolved by understanding your nature as the fourth factor, okay? There are three factors in these teachings, no? This teaching is about the three states, and the fourth factor is the substratum that permeates the three states, or the space, the light, or the ground, or the mirror that reflects the three jivas and the three worlds, you know, the waking world, the dreaming world, and the deep sleep world. So I am that consciousness, and my nature is full. My nature is completion. So being so whole, full, and complete, I have no interest in objects of attractions, objects of rejection. None of that makes sense to me. Going around, you know, running to fulfill my desires for objects, or running to avoid certain objects that just sticking around me and I want to get rid of, that all that activity makes no sense. So therefore, there is a state which is within the awakening state of the Jiva Atma. In this state is the state of the Yani, in which the mind is finally at peace because it's no longer under the tyranny of likes and dislikes, of compelling, binding likes and dislikes. Are we clear about that, the fundamental problem? Mark?
Yes, I understand that, Arvindo. Yeah.
Verse 100, Hemachuda did accordingly, and having gained that state referred to by his wife, he remained peaceful a long time, unaware of anything beside the self. So he went into a certain Samadhi state. The commentator says that he was in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Okay. So I don't know who is the commentator, but the verse does not clearly say that. If he was unaware of anything besides the self, he was in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, correct. The chapter 10 on further instructions by his beloved, the Guru, Hemachuda got Samadhi in spite of his external activities and remained in the state of emancipation even while alive. So now we talk. So he got instructions from Hemachuda. He got Samadhi, which was no longer Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because it was a Samadhi in spite of his interaction with its external environment and activities, and remained in a certain state that was freeing him from the world, although he had not to cancel the world by Nirvikalpa Samadhi, by this self-induced state of rejection or removal of the world. So the external activities remained, but the state of the mind was free, and he remained that way for as long as he was alive. Hemachuda notes that her husband had attained the supreme peace, and so did not disturb him. He awoke in an hour and a half, opened his eyes, and saw his wife nearby. Eager to fall into the state once more, he closed his eyes to go back to that Samadhi. But immediately, Hemachuda took hold of his hand and asked him sweetly, "My lord, tell me what you have ascertained to be your gain on closing your eyes, or your loss on opening them, my dears." So he came out of Samadhi, and immediately the thought is, let me go back to that source of bliss and satisfaction, peace. The world is not there, and I'm at rest. And the guru, Hemachuda, in order to help him not to fall for that trap, just challenge him a little bit. And then say, so what's the big deal? Why you want to quickly go back to Samadhi? So what can you gain by closing your eyes? And what could you lose by opening your eyes? Nice inquiry, So we understand the situation. When I open my eyes, I see the objects, and immediately my likes and dislikes are going to activate. Then I close my eyes, but there is sound here, there is smell. Anything is going to activate the mind. So you try to close all those channels to not be pulled into the world. But what is the big deal? Let the sense organs contact its fields of experience, respective objects, and be free from the entire system. You don't need to control everything to the extent that you don't experience the world anymore. Let your parameter determine when you're going to stop experiencing the world. Tell me, what can you gain by closing your eyes? What you lose by opening them, my dears? I love to hear that from you. Do say what happens on the eyes going closed or when they are left open. So what is the difference? On being pressed for an answer, he looked as if he were drunk and replied reluctantly and languidly as follows. So he was a little bit stoned. He was coming from Samadhi, and he was a little bit pissed off because the wife was pulling him from that state. And that is understandable as well. And then he very, very sweetly and respectfully, he treats her as his guru and say, "My dear, I have found pure, untainted happiness. I cannot find the least interest or the least satisfaction in the activities of the world. As sorrow increases when they finish, anything I gain in the world is a source of sorrow because I cannot keep what I gain indefinitely. I'm so fed up. Enough of the world and its objects. I want to close not only my eyes, but all the five senses. I don't have want to have any contact with the world. I have no taste for this world anymore. It's like a sucked orange, which has no value to me. Like a cattle incessantly chewing their cud. What a pity that such people should be to this day unaware of the bliss inherent to their own self. Yes, what a pity. I mean, we look at all of these descriptions about yoga and the fruits of a controlled mind, which is conducive to Samadhi. And we can't help but understand why yoga is so attractive, because you can have peace finally enough by withdrawing from the world, although it takes a lot of work. But a day comes that one is frustrated because the satisfaction or the bliss which is gained is only temporary. And then it is interrupted again and again. And if you are a sannyasi, if you are sadhu, if you are yogi, you can just do like Ramana Maharaj did, find a cave, and then you don't have obligations, you don't have any swadharmas. So you can make that your life, your dharma. But a lot of these people engaged in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, they are said to not die as a realized being, but die with a huge vasana for rejecting the world, a huge vasana for no duality, no contact with the world, which many people say that is a great purifier, because you are not feeding or nourishing those vasanas, those tendencies of desired objects, the world. I mean, I'm so tired with the world. So what's going to happen with the vasanas I came in this life with? Okay, so they are going to go through a process of undernourishment, and then they will finally enough dry out. So therefore, it's said that it's a great purifier of the mind. But no matter how purified you are, if you depend on a certain state, you are not free. Now, I'm so pure that now, Nirvikalpa Samadhi happens to me like that. But anytime I come out, I don't feel free. I feel that the world is binding on me. It's just a subtle understanding of the nature of Sat and Mithya. But it is indeed understandable. Enough of the world, they are tasteless. What a pity that people should not be to this day aware of the bliss of their own self. Just as a man goes begging while ignorant of the treasure hidden under his floor, so did I run after sensual pleasure, unaware of the boundless ocean of bliss within me. What do you think, Mark? Yoga sounds so attractive, huh?
Yeah, well, the way I think the path of yoga leads to the door of Vedanta, finally. I think anyone who's a serious yogi finally ends up with self-knowledge.
As long as they try to do what they do to gain freedom, because you cannot do your way into freedom, and you cannot do that by creating certain mental states or states of human consciousness, no matter how satisfying they may be. So finally enough, you're going to have to disturb that bliss and begin inquiring in the light of the teaching of the Upanishad. And a lot of yogis,
Yeah.
they refuse to do that because they get so much from this bliss, this temporary bliss, you understand?
I do understand, but even practicing asanas, when I practice asanas, which I don't do so often now, I realize that I find an absolute stillness within my mind. And I can see, you know, the pure reflection of consciousness during the yoga practice. So I do think that actually that leads then to inquiry.
It leads.
What is this silence? What is this stillness?
It leads to you because you have a inquiry vasana by now. You have a Vedantic vasana. You understand? So you have already inquiry vasana established in your mind. So you're gonna do some stretching or twisting with the body. Is going to relax the body. The body is connected to the mind. Is going to relax the mind, and then the Vedanta vasana is going to come. But most people, they will just stop there, try to enjoy, try to hold to that nice, comfortable experience, yeah.
Yeah.
World pursuits are laden with misery and pleasures are transient. Still, I was so infatuated that I mistook them for enduring pleasures, was often grief-stricken, yet did not cease to pursue the world of objects over and over again. The pit of it, men are fools, unable to discriminate pleasure from pain. They seek pleasures by gaining sorrow, enough of these activities which increase the relish for such pleasures. So, my dear, I beg you, with hands clasped, let me fall again back to my Nirvikalpa Samadhi to live in peace in my blissful nature. I pity you that although knowing this state, you are not in this state, but you are ever engaged with the affairs of the palace, you know? I pity you. So come with me. Let's go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. You know? You see, here there is a nice description. I beg you, men are fools, unable to discriminate pleasure from pain. They seek pleasure, but they get sorrow. And then it seems like it's very convincing logic and argument, because I definitely get a pleasure from bliss, from deep meditation and samadhi that is better than anything, you know? And but yet, when we come to the Upanishads and we have these radical declarations that says that to be attached to that state is to be stuck, stuck in bliss, stuck in sattva guna, stuck in the experience. The most subtle, the most pleasant object of experience is samadhi. And samadhi is something that one gets attached and say, okay, so bliss, I want to live eternally like that. And then Vedanta, the Upanishad comes and says, this is not it. This is still samsara. This is still duality. You and this object of experience. Well, what object of experience is my very self? No, it is the state that you experience by the means of a controlled mind, samadhi. So that experience is duality. You experience this bliss, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So Vedanta is very radical, and very few people are going to understand the meaning of freedom. Freedom is ultimately to be free from any and all possible mental states, because any state is an experience, and any experience by nature is bound by time. It has a beginning, a middle, variation, fluctuation, and end. So it's a very radical declaration or statement or assertion that one needs to leave it to somehow to acknowledge it and to see, yes, there must be something that is permanent. And the light of consciousness is the only permanent factor, is the fourth factor, you know. It's none of those three levels of experience. There are more than three levels of experience because, there are so many subtle, different frequencies of mental activities that are conducive to different locus, and so on. But there is something that never changes, which is the light of consciousness, illumining and revealing any and all subtle experience or subtle states of experience. Okay. Okie dokie. Sorry, I passed the time here. We meet again just coming Monday, Ishwara willing. Anything from you guys? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, my friends. Thank you, my Lord. Thank you, Tripura, Hemachuda, Hemachuda. Namaste. Meet you again Monday.
Okay, thank you, Alindo.
Thank you. Bye-bye.